A very good afternoon to you. This is your daytime update. We take you now back to Cape Town at the St. George's Cathedral, where people continue to flock in to pay their last respects to Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu. Our reporter Nasiphi Same is there and joins us live. Nasiphi, a very good afternoon to you. There has been a presence of mourners coming in to pay their last respects to the Archbishop. What are the activities that are taking place at St. George's Cathedral today?
Well, what we do know is that as much as there's a hive of activities just outside the St. George's Cathedral, where mourners and even those wanting to come celebrate his life, come here to lay flowers and also to write on the book that the city of Cape Town has made available, including, or rather the city has said that even there's sub-councils throughout the city, or rather people have the opportunity to go to the sub-council and write on that book. And mourners, including people who are celebrating the life of the Arch, are coming out here to pay their respects. And this is indeed following the passing of the Archbishop, who died at the age of 90 on the 26th of December. But to talk to us more about this multifaceted individual named Arch, who many people knew him as, I'm joined here by Patrick Solomons, the director of Molo Shingololo. Talk to us about Arch. I mean, he's known as an anti-apartheid activist, a human rights activist. But there's also a side to him that many knew, but not really speaking much about, which was he was a children's rights activist as well.
Yeah, that is correct. And I think throughout his life, he spoke out about the injustices committed against children as well. He was very, very concerned about how children were treated in South Africa and also in Africa and around the world. So he often made the opportunity, wherever he went, to speak to the children. Of course, we also know him. We sometimes saw these images on being televised of him engaging with children and young people. And he lights up when he's with young people. And so for Molo Shingololo, we've been watching the Arch. We've also engaged him in a whole range of advocacy activities. I remember in the earlier days, around HIV/AIDS, and also the fact that we want to make sure that children have access to anti-HIV/AIDS drugs, for example. So he was a fierce advocate at that time to make the drugs available in South Africa. I remember also when he spoke out in support of the Treatment Action Campaign at the time when the government was not very friendly towards the Treatment Action Campaign. And then, of course, also I remember at the time when, even much earlier, with the 1976 uprising, student uprising, and the Arch spoke out against children. But I think more importantly, the Arch also was very, very clear that he wanted to hear the voices of what happened to children during the Truth and Reconciliation Commission process. And then it was because of his efforts that there was a hearing for children. Unfortunately, children were not allowed at the hearing. And my daughter, Rudy Regan, she was one of the young people then who wrote a letter to the Truth Commission objecting to the decision that they made concerning children not being present at the hearing. So the Arch was also much later in the year. He supported, of course, also children's advocacy with the constitutional writing process. He encouraged children to take part in expressing what kind of South Africa they want post-apartheid. And he encouraged Molo Shingololo as well to mobilize the children, to facilitate for children's voices to be heard. So that was a very, very important period for Molo Shingololo, that we were able, through that process, help children to take part in the constitutional writing process in South Africa. And then, of course, also recently with all the violence that we've experienced, both in South Africa, gang-related violence. The Arch also spoke out against violence because that children experience because of police action, for example. He also spoke about the treatment of children in other parts in Africa. And he raised his voice consistently where he felt his voice had to be heard to ensure that the voices of children and children's interests are being looked after. He got very upset when politicians don't do what they're supposed to do for children. He got very upset with the business people who are not doing what they're supposed to do for children. I remember there was a saying that he had that with all the money and the profits that businesses are doing, we could have solved the problem of child hunger so many times over, right, on a global level. So he had a passion for children. He lights up when he's with children. So that's what I will always remember about the Arch. And yes, he made his contribution concerning child rights as well in South Africa and globally.
Patrick Solomon there, Molo Shingololo director, also one of the mourners here to not only, lay flowers, but also to celebrate and remember the person that the Arch was, and, talking to us about the extensive work that the Arch did in contributing to the rights of children. As I mentioned earlier on, the Arch is known for a number of roles that he played in society. Earlier on, a lady that we spoke to from Khayelitsha saying that as much as she never personally interacted with the Arch, but the few interactions that she had through the television, she takes away a number of things, which was the Arch teaching people to love God and also implementing the word. And now we hear from Patrick here saying that Arch was also a fierce activist for children's rights, including the work that he was doing, not forgetting the fact that he really loved the little ones in his contribution, and also lighting up when he sees the younger generation. But what we also know is that on Friday, here at the Cathedral, the Arch's body will be laid between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. and that is the day before his funeral. And leading up to that, there will be a number of activities in the city of Cape Town. One of it being the fact that the City Hall, including Table Mountain, every night at 8 p.m. lights up in purple rather, including tomorrow. We know that the city of Cape Town, in its interfaith memorial for the Arch, will be hosting that memorial service at 6 p.m. and on the 1st of January for his funeral, a number of people that will be making their way to the St. George's Cathedral will have an opportunity to have their final goodbyes or give their final goodbyes rather to the Arch. However, we do know that there's a number of people that would like to be here in Cape Town but have been advised to rather be at home or go to places where they will be able to view the live streaming of the send-off of the Arch. But we will be keeping you updated, Tami, throughout the course of the day with the people that we're interacting with and how they are celebrating the life and the legacy that the Archbishop Desmond Tutu leaves behind, and them, carrying the baton and moving forward with some of his teachings.
I must say, Nasiphi, the pictures of the Table Mountain being lit up have really just evoked, so much emotion as the city pays tribute to the Arch. But also, did you hear the bells chiming earlier on today?
Oh, indeed. That is also one of, I would say, physical, or rather, invoking one of the senses, hearing the bells chime for a good 10 minutes. And people have been advised to have a moment of silence in those 10 minutes, even if it's just for a few seconds. And as you mentioned, the Table Mountain, including the City Hall in Cape Town, being switched on, or rather turning purple, is that stark reminder that indeed the Arch has indeed left us. And, speaking to people and individuals in regards to how they feel. I mean, a lady traveling all the way from Khayelitsha just to come to this St. George's Cathedral to pay her last respect. She says when the news broke to her, it was before she went to church, and saying that she couldn't, think of anything after that. She just went blank, saying that even though she didn't know him personally, or rather not having met him in person, she feels like the Arch was somebody that played a major role and contribution in his life. She also talks about him being a firm advocate and standing against the apartheid regime and not being scared, rather, to stand alone and speak out against injustices. And speaking about injustices, the Arch was known as a human rights activist, anti-apartheid activist, including speaking out against homophobia and encouraging people to love one another as they are. And not too far from here, as we do understand that following the announcement by the president, the flags of South Africa, or rather in government departments, have been flown at high mast since that announcement. And right next to the flag here at the St. George's Cathedral, a flag by the LGBTQI plus community is also flying high there, as we do know the work that he has done in advocating against the hate, or rather against homophobia, which is one of the things that the community is also, acknowledging of some of the things that he is saying, or rather said, taking into account that he is or was a man recognized and respected globally, including some of the words that he used in trying to convince people to accept one another and love them as they are. So we will be seeing a hive of activities here, including other parts. I mean, we heard now from Patrick talking about the Arch's legacy. I mean, just in Paarl, about 45 kilometers away from here, there's a school that actually bears the name of the Archbishop. And we spoke to the principal there, and says that he actually has a great responsibility to ensure that the school carries the legacy of the Archbishop at high regard, and saying that he remembers his first interactions with the Arch many years ago when he was still a young adult at UWC, at one of the universities here, when he was still the Chancellor. So the Arch wore many hats outside of just being the Archbishop and a man that is loved by many, not just in South Africa, but outside of the borders of this country.
I must say, Nasiphi, the significance of the color purple there, as we know that was, the color of the cleric gown that the Arch wore. Thank you so much for that update. And I know that so many people would wish to actually be in Cape Town right now to be able to experience the chiming of the bells, to be able to see the City Hall being lit up, as well as Table Mountain. But as we heard from Archbishop Makgoba yesterday, do not take a bus to Cape Town. Instead, go to the local cathedrals and to the local places where services will be held in his honor. Thank you very much. That's our Nasiphi Same coming to us live from outside St. George's Cathedral.